I'd like to call to order the regular evening council meeting for Monday, April 29th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming on the District of Summerland YouTube channel. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. Approval agenda. Councillor Van Alphen, Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. Anybody like to remove anything? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The development services report, please.
Okay. We'll go down to number 13. Anything else? Not much else to remove. Yeah, council. We got a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Councillor Peak, Councillor Trainer, all in favor? That carries. Go straight into my report. So last Friday, that's April 25th, I attended the annual general meeting of the Southern Interior Municipal Employers Association, which we know as SIMIA. Along with our HR manager, Marty Manders. SIMIA acts as an agent for securing benefit plan coverage and related services for its members, which includes the City of Kelowna, City of Penticton, City of Revelstoke, District of Summerland, Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, and the town of Princeton, and recently the town of Oliver has also joined. With revisions to the SIMIA new member policy, there was discussion at the AGM on the continuing focus to recruit more local governments to the group. The day before, on April 24th, the chiefs of the Silks communities and the mayors and regional district chairs throughout the Okanagan met in Vernon for the second collaborative leadership table to discuss the protection of the Okanagan Lake watershed. It was agreed to draft a memorandum of agreement on a number of priority focus areas, including water source protection, water governance, and the protection of salmon habitat. We will review a draft memorandum at our next get-together, which is scheduled for September. And if we're able to reach an agreement in principle, it will be brought back to each of our municipal and band councils and regional boards for endorsement. Finally, Councillor Van Alphen and I attended the Regional District Board meeting on April 18th, where Archie McDonald, a retired forester, gave a presentation on actions required to mitigate the frequency and intensity of wildfires. He said the provincial budget allocates funds for wildfire suppression and wildfire recovery, but not for wildfire mitigation. He said all the mitigation work that local governments are doing, such as Fire Smart, will be for naught if the provincial government doesn't also do its part on Crown land. He said forests in the interior today are old and unhealthy, and we have to return them to the more unevenly aged and less dense forests of 100 years ago, which we can do through better forest management. It was a really interesting presentation, and I would encourage anybody to go onto the RDS website and take a look at the full presentation from him. It was very interesting indeed. So that's my report. CIO, your report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are experiencing a delay in the completion of our road and drainage work on Victoria Road South to Agar Street. Council will recall last year we went as far as we could go given there's a Fortis gas main right underneath the road on that further south part of the road project. And it is a growing concern, as a couple of weeks ago, a child attempting to navigate the incomplete multi-use trail fell off their bike and was rendered unconscious, requiring an ambulance even to be called. So we have redoubled our efforts to obtain their authorization, that is from Fortis, to complete the project. And I even reached out to the CEO personally, in which I received back a response from a regional representative for the company who indicated the matter is being looked into. Unfortunately, this main gas line also intersects with other projects on our capital list this year. And without a clear way forward, we are very concerned that other delays could also be experienced for these other projects. We're in the process of establishing operating hours for the temporary dog park at the Peach Orchard Beach Temporary Park. With the days getting longer, there has been some concern relayed to us from the area residents that people are coming quite early in the morning and then later at night, along with associated sounds and activity of dogs playing and interacting with their owners. As such, we plan to move forward with operating hours from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, starting on May 1st, with a lock being placed on the gate to the park when it's not in operation. Other improvements, such as aerating and top dressing the sod and moving the gate, have proven to be beneficial to the park, which has received high use due to its popularity. Our project to fix the roof at the aquatic center encountered a setback when it was discovered that parts of the roof are rotten and will need remediation before we put new shingles back on it. We are currently awaiting final advice and pricing on the repair options, with the hopes that this can come back to council in our May meeting. At this point, it looks like we can remediate the damaged portions, but it's going to increase the budget requirements for the project. Work on the pier has started again with the arrival of key components, including some of the steel superstructure. Once the superstructure is welded to the steel piles, the wood decking and railing will be installed with the target official opening date of July 1st this year. Rotary continues to conduct fundraising for other enhancements, and once their recommendations are known, we will begin the process of working with the province on those components and associated approvals. For now, our authorization from the Crown allows for a basic reconstruction of the pier, and we are going to try to achieve a very similar look and feel as the original pier that residents and visitors alike enjoyed for many years. Finally, just a reminder to everyone that the Deer Ridge Sewer Information Session is tomorrow at the George Rica Center from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Staff will be on hand with maps and project design details to answer any questions from residents on that project. We also have prepared a project presentation, which people can view ahead of the session. The presentation has been placed on our website for the project page, and we also have put a link on our Facebook page to that presentation. With that, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilor Trainer.
CAO, can you just repeat for me again what the holdup is from Fortis on Victoria Road South?
Yeah, thank you through the mayor. It's a mystery actually what the holdup is, to be honest. We're trying to get to the bottom of what the holdup is. When we do a major project like this and there's a major utility in the area, we are required to do a referral. In this case, we made that referral last summer and we still haven't got anything back from Fortis. And we've tried a number of times. I think they're probably very busy. So I suppose that's part of it, but I just don't know what the holdup is, to be honest.
Because if it's a safety concern, especially if kids are biking along there, because that is a route to school, I think that I know you phone them, but if it's just a bureaucratic, holdup, that's not good enough, I don't think, from their end. So I encourage you to keep bugging them.
Thank you. Move on to the public comment opportunity for anything except the two development variance permits that have a statute requirement on them. Anybody would like to speak, just come on up.
Speak to the variance permit?
No, I'm afraid not. Statutory requirements don't allow it. So we'll move right on to the development reports, 9.1, Landry Crescent, and that's Mr. Baker.
All right, thank you, Council. Yes, so I'm introducing a development variance application, DVP 23-027. It's located 3240 Landry Crescent. is to facilitate a private 28 boat slip dock on the lake beyond the upland strata. Just a quick overview of the zoning and the OCP designation. So in the adjacent area, in Trail Creek here, you find a lot of residential zones, campground, agricultural parks, and of course the water zone, which the proposal falls within, which is the WZ1 zone. In regards to the official community plan, of course, it's again residential, agricultural. There's some commercial components. However, there is no official community plan designation in the foreshore on the lake, and there's generally a lack of OCP policies for docks outside of Lower Town. So the applicants are proposing to construct a 28 boat slip dock with the top of the T section being 142.6 meters wide, parallel to the shoreline. And the reason why the request, and because of the shallow nature of the area, the dock needs to extend to 108.2 meters from the shore. And this is because of the shallow nature and for the need for boats to access the dock. The WZ1 zone extends roughly 110 meters from the shore, so it's tight, but the dock does fall within the WZ1 zone. The dock is intended to be utilized by the residents in the upland strata, which consists of 45 dwellings. As you can see on the screen there, highlighted in the green polygon. And the proposal is also in regards to the foreshore. So the foreshore is slated to remain boat free. So by the use of buoys along the between the dock and or along the dock rather and the shoreline. And it's intended to be used by the public and other recreational users. So if you're kayaking, canoeing, or you're swimming in that area on your screen, which is highlighted in yellow, and the beach will continue to be enjoyed by the public. It should be worth noting, however, that this application has come to council previously on a much larger scale, utilizing or requesting a rezoning. So the previous application was Z22-005, and the applicants at the time were proposing a larger dock consisting of 48 boat slips with a length of 127.1 meters and a 123.7 meter parallel extension, so the top of the T shape of the dock, and as well as a 9.8 meter wide access ramp. Council ultimately denied the application. So the applicants have requested that they would like to instead stay within the WZ1 zone, revise the scale of the project, which now only requires variances. So the first variance is for regarding the access ramp located at the head of the dock, connecting the dock to the upland or the shore. So they would like to vary the width of the access ramp from 1.5 meters to 3 meters. So that's a difference of 1.5 meters. The second variance, which you can see on the screen there with the red arrows, that's to vary the T shape width or parallel extension of the dock from the shoreline from 9 meters to 142.6 meters. The difference being 133.6 meters. And the third variance is to actually vary the length of the dock extending beyond the natural boundary from 40 meters to 108 meters. And that's a difference of 68.2 meters. Like all of our applications, we do refer them out. So the applicant and the main comments were from the fire department and the need to adhere to all provincial regulations, and the proposal would need to meet the latest fire protection requirements. So just for a discussion point, so in terms of the location of the proposed dock, so the location of the dock is below the high water mark. It is located, and Gartrell Trail is located above the high water mark within the riparian area. Riparian protection regulations are from the high water mark to 30 meters uplands from the high water mark. And there is a riparian covenant, which makes up the area from high water mark to 15 meters upland. The location is, well, obviously going to be visible if approved from the highway and the shoreline. And again, the dock is to be used as an amenity use for the upland development. Again, there is an absence of OCP policies for large scale docks outside of Lower Town. Now, in regards to the siting, so the property has a parcel length of 401.123 meters approximately. And the location of the dock on the property is pretty center, with the width of the T shape being 142.6 meters parallel to the shoreline. The boats, if approved, will access the slips from the furthest extent of the dock into Okanagan Lake. And no boats will be permitted between the slips and the shoreline. So in regards to the scale, so the zoning bylaw allows a maximum of 40 meter long dock to extend into the Okanagan Lake from the natural boundary. So the applicants, of course, are requesting that they would like to extend it by 68.2 meters or 68 meters, sorry, to a total of 108 meters. The reason for this request is because the littoral shelf, so essentially the shallow lake bed, extends approximately 98 meters before the shoreline dips below the 0.8 meter low water mark depth, which is achieved gradually before getting deeper. Now, this will create kind of an unprecedented scale, obviously within the Trout Creek area. However, that being noted, 28 boat slips would fit the scale of the upland strata development of 45 units. In regards to the environmental, so further extension to the lake would maintain the shore and foreshore for public use. The applicants are intending to install buoys, which will prevent boats from entering that area. And it would also mitigate the impacts on the lake bed from propeller scouring. Furthermore, there would be no need for dredging had the dock only been 40 meters from the shoreline. The proposal also mitigates impacts on waterfowl and migratory birds from motorized boats. And again, would allow users access to the beach and for foreshore recreational activities such as paddleboarding, kayaking, and swimming. There is an environmental assessment report attached to your agenda, and there also is a revised memo in response to the new scale of the dock. So generally, the use and siting is generally supportable. Of course, there are concerns on the visual waterscape in the area, though it's most likely going to affect the upland strata development, campground users to the west, motorists on the highway, trail users, and recreational users. It would reduce environmental impacts as mentioned previously, and would maintain the shore and the foreshore for recreational users, and would allow the upland residences the same privileges to access Okanagan Lake via docks and utilize any boats that are afforded to them, like other residents on the lake. And on your screen here is the staff recommendation to approve the requested variances. And that would conclude staff's presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Trainer.
I was just wondering about the width of the access ramp. I did read the report, but maybe I missed it. How come it needs to go from 1.5 to 3 meters?
Well, Sorry, I should have mentioned that the applicants are actually in the audience to answer any like specific questions for the requests. So if that's, the applicant can answer that.
Just corporate officer, how do we invite the applicant up? Just me or the council? Do we need approval? Yeah, okay, just straw polls, everybody opposed?
Nope.
No, okay. The applicant may come. Okay, thank you, yeah.
Members of council. Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. I'm Mark Koch, representing Kirkhoff Develop Build. The width of the rampway is intended, of course, for safety. I mean, you don't want people walking and slipping and falling. Of course, we talk about kids. I mean, it is water, but of course, drownings and safety is a key factor. And with people bringing, your I was going to say coolers, but I don't think that's appropriate, but life jackets or other things that you would take on your boat. The intent there is to have a little bit of an ability to pass back and forth on the ramp itself.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to think of the scale of it. So I just wanted to know why it needed that extra space. And then my second question is emergency slip. I noticed that you have one dedicated to that. Can you just tell me a bit more about that? Is that going to be reserved all the time, or what's your idea around the emergency slip?
Absolutely. So the intent there is to offer it. It would be a complimentary slip for emergency response outfits. Summerland Fire and Rescue, of course, would be a happy recipient, I'm sure. The idea is also we reached out to, I forget the full name of the organization, South Okanagan Search and Rescue. Forgive me for getting the name of the organization wrong. I did have some preliminary conversations with them. They were going to take it to their board and discuss some options. But the intent with that is that there would be a permanent dedicated slip for an emergency response boat on Okanagan Lake that, of course, could be using that and be able to respond to any emergencies in a quicker fashion.
Yeah, one more?
Sorry, one more question. Okay, so that would be permanently dedicated to emergency boat. Okay. And then my final question is, I also read in your letter, you're going to contribute $50,000 to environmental mitigation around the area. Has some of that already been spent, or is that something that would come should these variances pass?
Yeah, of course. Those contributions are revenue driven, so there would need to be a revenue source in order to be able to make that financially feasible. But the team has had discussions with the Summerland Parks Department, and I understand that there's been some renaturalization in the immediate area. So the intent there is to try to support a very beneficial community cause, and we have had some discussions with the parks team. So the goal there is to try to find some mutual alignment and support renaturalization in the vicinity of the community.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Mr. Hodge, I was wondering, what are these docks going to be built out of?
Your Worship, we do have a dock builder in the audience today. It would be typical pilings, and the deck surface itself is a flow-through deck surface, which has a higher or more beneficial environmental outcome. I can certainly get our biologist to speak to the rationale as to why, but I do know that this flow-through decking was intentionally selected because it does have a better environmental outcome than your typical decking.
Wonderful. If I may. We had our own problem with docks and went to that design as well. So the maintenance of this dock would be the responsibility of the Lander Crescent development?
The strata would be maintaining it, yes.
Okay. And just to clarify, the boats will only be on the outside edge of the dockage of the T?
That's correct. That was a very intentional part of the design, because the whole driving factor is to get to the water that the boats don't cause any underlying environmental impact on the substrate. So when working with the designers, The idea was to have the boats access only from the deep water, and that was intentional. The previous design had, because it was sort of a double loaded design, this is now single loaded, and all boats would be entering from deep water. So even your most novice boater would be coming straight shot from deep water, and the risk of propeller scour is significantly reduced. In fact, I don't know the exact depth. The minimum is 0.8, but I know that when you factor in the back of a boat that is anchored on the deep side, it's significantly more than the 0.8, which is the minimum requirement.
I did take a site visit, so I had a walk in that area. It's definitely shallow. I like the opportunity whereby it would be buoyed off so that the swimmers would be safe from any boats that are traveling around and would encourage boating in behind the wharf.
That's right. We think that's a nice benefit, that you would have a protected, calm, safe area for folks to swim. Of course, the foreshore is fully protected as it is today, and nothing's going to change in that regard. But having that sort of protected feature or outcome, I see as a benefit. I know my kid's in the back. He's getting a little older and he's a decent swimmer, but when he was younger, you certainly would want to find those places where there's no waves or whatnot, that the young folks can be protected.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Worship. Being that this dock is so far out, will it be lit lights at night?
We have had some discussions. The final lighting solution is not determined, so we're open if council wants it not lit. Yeah, I know some councils or communities are night sky. They have intentions for night sky protection. What we had discussed was it would have very low output solar lighting, just for safety if someone were to be walking along the dock. Okay. Not an obtrusive lighting package, but something that would just be providing some safety.
Okay, and so the first time this came to council, it was denied. My concern is that it's a beautiful development, beautiful addition to the community. There's no doubt about it. But this dock thought came up all of a sudden. Like when this proposal came to the council table, this subdivision development plan, would that have not been the time to have the dock included with this whole project?
Yeah, if I may, Your Worship and Council, I appreciate the question because it's a bit of a technical answer. The plans that came before council, the development permit did show a dock on it, but it had a very clear notation saying, future approval required, something along those lines. So of course, council did not approve the dock at that point in time. So it was shown, but the technicality is that when you look at upland uses and foreshore uses, you actually do need to have an upland use in place in order to subsequently qualify for a foreshore use. So that was how it transpired. The intent was shown from the very beginning, of course, not approved at that time. I'm not trying to imply that it was, but the statement was there, and the community, the residents that are now making this home are certainly excited to have this feature for the community. And now is the time, now that the upland is built, that technically it can be applied for. Thank you.
Councillor Beth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, thanks for your presentation. Couple questions. One is about the raised elevation throughout the middle of the kind of the walkway. So is the intention, I couldn't quite tell exactly from the elevations, so that you would be able to paddle under it. Say if you're on a paddle board, so that'll raise it up a fair height off the water. How do you anticipate it being tall enough to fit, a 6'5" individual on a paddle board? Not that I'm that tall, but I'm not the only one out there on the boats. So for individuals, I just could you speak to that a little bit about the elevation and what that plan would be?
Absolutely. And again, a great question, and one that is still open to be determined based on council's wishes. The current design does show the first third of the ramp heading out into the water as being raised, and that was intentional for kayakers, if you may. Depending on water level, I think it was going to be about 4 feet off the surface of the water. So the intent there is for kayakers and folks to recreate and be able to pass through, that this isn't going to be an obtrusion that would not allow people to do so. But I truly would look to council if they have an intent to see it at water level. That is an option. It's not a technical requirement in terms of senior level approvals. If council wants it to be a little bit more lower profile on the water, that is something that is possible, and we can reconfigure the design. But the intent there was that it was to be raised a few feet so that folks could pass through.
Thank you. So I guess I was just thinking back to the feedback that we received with the first application for not the variance, but for the rezoning, was that there was a lot of concern about, I think it's called the passive boaters, the users who are just not using motorized boating in that area. And a lot of that is stand-up paddleboarding. And so that is the height of a full individual. And I wondered how it could possibly look, because that would actually really make it very high. So that 4 feet answers that question, but I'm not sure how those users would feel about it. So that's just this one question for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the attorney?
Could you just speak a little bit about how the dock will interact with the public trail that goes through there? Like, will it be a trail coming from the development across, and then like how do people get across, I guess?
Absolutely. So of course the guardrail trail is as it is and as it will forever continue in all its glory. Now, perpendicular to the shoreline, I think the question is about the access from Lake House community to the dock. So the development permit did include an access path, a fairly unobtrusive access path from Lake House itself to the dock. The dock would only be beginning below the high water mark, so it's not blocking any public access. Of course, the public would have full ability to traverse the access trail that would be taking folks down to the dock.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm done. In terms of the height of the walk, the access ramp, this is just my personal opinion. I would rather see it all one height, like so that you can't go under it, just for visual impact, because this dock is already big. And so I think that while I can see the reasoning behind allowing people underneath it, I think that trying to keep it as low impact in terms of visual would be my preference. I don't know how the rest of council feels. Just because I think bringing it up would really kind of add quite a bit.
Good point.
Yeah, so that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Peak?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. If you could describe to me, this is going to be a public dock? Because I'm looking at, this is a public walkway, and people may very well think this is a public dock. Will you have difficulty with that possible public interface on a dock that is built for the development?
We don't anticipate. We think it's a lovely community. The dock itself would be private, of course, for the residents within the community. In terms of the public's ability to continue enjoying the beach, the foreshore, nothing changes. We'd have some signs, I'm sure, saying private property, just trying to prevent any theft or anything like that. But again, it's a lovely neck of the woods and a beautiful, safe community, and we certainly hope for the best. But I'm sure we'd have some signs that say, private access only or something like that. Thank you.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at your design, is it a floating dock? Like with water level? Will it?
No, it's not intended to be a floating dock.
Because I'm just thinking of 2017, 2018, when we had the floods in Trout Creek and what have you. I just thought if the dock raised on the floated with the water levels, it might be last longer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a thought.
Yeah. Good point.
Councillor Sparkle?
Yes, I was wondering where provincial approvals fit into this. If council was to approve this, does it still need provincial approval? Or?
I can take a crack at that one, through your worship, to Council Barkle. Yes. I'm not too sure of the status of that application to the Crown, and maybe the applicant could inform council as to what the status is, but just because council would approve a variance doesn't mean that the Crown authorization would not be required. It would still also be required separately.
Yeah, Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there was a lot of positive feedback that we received your letters. But I also note alternate opinions about this proposal. I'm wondering what is the alternative if this is not approved for your residents in that community?
Sorry, I think I bumped that off. Building docks, it's not cheap. So of course, there's an element of scale that one needs to build docks like this. So the alternative is probably no dock. I mean, the goal here is to ensure that the community builds out. We feel it's a lovely community, and it's really pleasant to hear council feel the same, and that the appropriate amenities are built. What we've seen, we had a slide, it's kind of interesting, and I'm sure council can remember, there was a sailboat that was kind of beached on the foreshore for a long time. I don't know where it went, but it went away. So, I think things like that just happen organically over time, where people throw out those moorage buoys. I don't like that. I think that's sort of a sense of mayhem and disorder, and having a structured dock, in my opinion, I think would make the most sense. So the alternative, I suppose, is things organically happen, and they may not necessarily be, as ordered or structured as make the most sense for the community, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions before we have a discussion? No? Thank you, Mr. Hatch. Yeah. Okay, council, where do you want to go with this? Somebody want to put a motion on the table? Councillor Barkwell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll put forward the motion. I'm trying to find it again. Here, just a touch, and I'm going to put forward that the motion, and then we can have a proper discussion, that the development variance permit for DVP 23-024 not be approved for Lakeshore Landing along property located at 3240 Landry Crescent, legally described as Lot 5, District Lot 477, ODYD Plan KAP 82140. If we get a seconder, then I'll talk about the discussions on why.
Okay, anybody like to second that? Okay. Okay, second by Councillor Peak. And so now that it is a motion for denial, the applicant does have an opportunity to address council before we discuss it. So I know we've already heard from him, but if you would like to come up and say anything you like, sir, you can.
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll try to keep my comments as short as possible. We feel that there's solid rationale for the dock. The motivation is not to build a long dock. Long docks are expensive, like I mentioned. The goal here is to have boats structured in a way that makes sense for the community, that we don't see that disorder that I was talking about a moment ago. Having done a lot of work on this specific dock, I think the applicant team is really proud to have worked with the neighbors. We have letters of support from the folks to the west, the folks to the south, the farmland, also the first single family home on the east. The Penticton Indian Band has provided their support behind the application. Also, having done a lot of redesign work, thoughtful redesign work to try to still maintain that environmental motivation, which of course is water depth to prevent prop scour. And I think at the expense of cost, I mean, stringing the dock in a single loaded fashion is not cheap or efficient when it comes to putting piles into the water, of course. But we feel it's the right solution to have the deep entry access point for these boats. And of course, boats are an important amenity. We live in Summerland. It's a beautiful community, and it's nice to see Lake House become its own community. And we certainly do look to council and respectfully ask for their support.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Barkwell, you want to speak to it?
Last time this proposal came forward, well, it wasn't this proposal, but it was a bigger proposal. We had overwhelming opposition. I think there was 56 letters of pages of opposition. Of course, we've got letters of support, but there's two groups of people here. We've got the people that are going to live there, and of course they want it. You know, that goes without saying. They don't even have to send a letter of support. We know they want it, or at least most of them will. And then there's the rest of the community, and no one I've spoken to has told me that the scaling down of this dock makes any difference. It's still huge. People put it into things that they can relate to. Well, it's longer than a football field out there. And it results in a huge amount of additional boat traffic, and boats leave slicks of oil and gas on the water. And all these things are developing a sort of a cumulative effect. And at some point, we have to say enough's enough. And the nature of Summerland is not the nature of some resort communities like Lake Havasu or something where you can walk across the lake from one boat to another. That's not the sort of community that we are. It's not the sort of the reason why we turned down the Oasis giant dock as well. We've reached that limit. And a dock of this size isn't appropriate. It was never promised, and never really part of the discussion. The same as what happened at Oasis. They told us specifically that they didn't want to have a dock there. I don't remember exactly what was the discussion on Kirchhoff's project here, but it was definitely approved without a dock. And I don't remember much discussion. I think it was sort of, as the developer said, kind of waved off as something we'll talk about maybe in the future. And so now here's the future, and now we're talking about it, and we have to make that call. So I'll let somebody else, there's a few more points I'd like to make later, but I'll let somebody else speak.
Anyone else? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Burkeville, for bringing those points forward. I can respect how the variance application has come forward very thoughtfully with some reasonable changes from what it was to what this proposal is. But the reality is that we're still talking about a giant structure in the lake. And that's a really big challenge when you're thinking about our community and the future for the next 25 and 50 years. And we're stewards of our community and not just one part of it, but not one neighborhood. And that's always hard. It's the balance. For me, one of the things I think about is knowing that off-board boat motors are not subject to any regulations in terms of our carbon footprints, in terms of emissions. It's really sad because instead of having this foreshore where people might be able to go and use kayaks and boats and use that whole area, you'll have a limited space to do so. And once that decision's made, we can't walk that back. That's what's going to be in that location for the next 100 years, whether it's that version or another one. So it's a really challenging decision. I really do respect these changes that have been brought forward, though. I'd like to acknowledge that. And I'm going to let somebody else.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Pete.
Thank you very kindly, Your Worship. I really do see a great effort being put to, in respect of the comments that were received the last time this application came to council. It has come down by a great deal. And I look at the nature of the shoreline and the other property at Illahai, which is an RV parking, and they have a beach and lakefront in front. And I do make note of the fact that there have been a lot of buoys out there, as has been mentioned. Over time, there have been one or two boats that have been left and abandoned. When you look at the actual feeling of the shore, there's a spit that comes out, and it creates a quiet area in there where the shallows are. In some ways, I think that boat slips in the fashion that is being proposed here are an advantage in terms of where they allow for travel still along the foreshore, and that that the boat dock is far enough out I come from the area I was at before was high, had a lot of area for boating. And there were docks that were built like this. And as Councillor Van Alphen had alluded to, some of them were lit at night as a safety factor. I think there's some leeway that's possible in the application of dockage within Lake Okanagan. It may have been a practice that in Summerland we haven't, other than the sailing club and the yacht club that had these kind of dockage. But I think there's an opportunity to consider this.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll just, Councillor Chair.
I am really on the fence about this. I really wanted to come into this discussion with a totally open mind. And I went to the location, which I do frequently, but I went there last week to specifically try to study and envision how I would see this dock. I looked at other docks that are further down Landry, particularly the one that's got 8 slips from the townhouses that's east of that. That dock is the reason why I was commenting before about the height of the walkway or the access is because the one that's further down the 8 slip one, that's a pretty low key dock. And that's what I like about it. If I was to support this, I would really like to see it be as low key as possible. And so I still don't know exactly how I'm going to vote, but I sympathize and I completely understand a lot of what Councillor Barkwold said. I think we have a responsibility to look after the lake and the environment in that area. But at the same time, I appreciate the development and I appreciate that the developer went to the effort to listen to our feedback and to take the scale down. I like the emergency slip. I like the contribution, the $50,000 that would enhance the other parts of the environment in that area. And I understand that, the people living there are Summerland tax-paying residents as well. So I have to listen to their feedback. So I'm really on the fence on this one. There's pros and cons to both sides. And I just need a couple more minutes.
Okay, I'll just weigh in then. I think increasing density, residential density on the lakeshore is a good thing. And I understand people want to live by the water. And I think the lake house development is a really great development and I see the attraction for it. But at the same time, as we increase density, residential density on the waterfront, and this came up in the Oasis development as well, people can't expect to everybody have their own private boat slip. As you increase that density on the lake, the precedents this sets, you'll get the lake cannot sustain it. It's just it'll become unsustainable, and this would be the start of it would start to snowball after this, and our lake can't sustain that kind of boats, those number of boats on the lake. And, I think that's a message we need to get out. As I understand, it's, how the dock couldn't be part of the original development process. I understand the process part of it. But I think it needs to be clear that when people buy into properties on the lakeshore that are a higher density, that there can't be an expectation that you have your own private boat slip that goes with it. That's just, the two just can't work together. It's not sustainable. We'll go to Councillor Van Alphen first and then Councillor Barkwold.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am torn on this one too, but there's been a lot of good points made. The lighting is a concern, safety factor being that it's extended out so far. That would be definitely a concern I would have. The other concern I have is in front of Illahai. You have these boats that are buoyed out there randomly, and that's a concern. I look at this maybe with the vision that it's one dock servicing a complete neighborhood, as its own subdivision, so to speak, versus individual docks up and down the lake. in that same area. So this one dock will service many people instead of, just everybody having their own individual dock, so to speak. So I mean, yeah, I'm torn between, it's got pluses, but, I hear Councillor Barkwell, I hear Mayor Holmes, but, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say something similar to you too. It's, the world changes and it's changed and it's going to continue to change. And we're running out of land and we're running out of water, or water area in this case. And so at some point we've got to change with it. So it's a good thing to increase the density of the land and so people will have a place to stay and live and enjoy the community and the valley. And that's essential. But the water is more of a park. It's more of a public good. And we have to preserve that now because once it's gone, it's gone. And another 28 boats and another on a dock of this size, there's visual aspects as well as environmental aspects. There's noise aspects. There's just many aspects that are that we have to preserve for the benefit of the community and the larger community, and not have that public good gone for the individuals at that place, which have no expectation. So I believe in change, but we have to manage that change. And this is where it starts. We have to preserve as well as grow. And we have to keep what we have as much as what we have so that as we grow, there's something for people to enjoy, not everybody to say, well, stop it after I get here, and give me what I want. And then next guy, well, we won't do anything. We won't let him do it. It stops now. And also, I don't think much of this idea that it may prevent abandoned boats. There's going to be boats out there. People are going to try and buoy their boats, or boats are going to sink now and then. Regardless of this dock, there was one for quite a while along the road to Crescent Beach. I don't think that was the first one the last year or two. It's still going to happen, whether you have a dock here or not. So that's kind of a non-existent point there with abandoned boats and such.
Thank you. Councillor Peak.
I could have a question perhaps to staff, because I don't know who else would answer it. On this particular area, would there be an option for individual homeowners to look for dockage, single docks along this waterfront?
Through your worship to Councillor Peak, right now, so this area is zone WZ1, which allows for private use docks. I think we do restrict the number of docks for one per upland property. So that's one variance. I think if they were going to consider more than a large scale dock for this upland owner, because the strata from our perspective is all one owner. It's a strata association that owns that upland parcel. So yes, the use rights are there, but there would be most likely variances required.
If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of the denial? Oh.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, holy geez. Sounds like Councillor Patton. Yeah, I didn't know you were there.
Yes, I am. I'm just about in Valemont, so yes, I've been hanging on to everything. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind if I gave my 2 cents.
Absolutely. I had no idea you were listening in. Okay, go ahead.
On the YouTube, I'm under Julie. So that's why after.
Councillor Patton, you're breaking up big time. We can't really hear you.
Anyways, I'm in disagreement with Councillor Barkwell. I believe that what we're looking at here is okay. All righty. Okay, so what I was saying, Councillor or Mayor Holmes, is that 28 boats could be buoyed with the environmental damage far exceeding what the dock would be, and thing. So, but I'll leave it at that since I've got spotty reception.
Okay, are you hanging on to vote? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Patton, are you still with us?
I will.
Okay. Councillor Barkwell.
You know, you're not allowed to buoy a boat on the water, on the foreshore. So what Councillor Patton says is, that's true in that it would be a problem, but it's illegal. So that's not an issue.
Councillor Valentine.
Tell the people at Ilhi that, because it is an issue. Because nobody enforces it, so it is an issue. This is one way of at least having it neat and tidy, so to speak. You know, I can agree with both sides of the argument to a point, but eventually there's going to be more pressure put on our yacht clubs for more slips, and that's going to happen if we turn these ones down, possibly, and then they can commute from there to the yacht club. You know, so more carbon footprint. So you can just leave them where they are and go from there.
Councillor Barkwell.
So you're supposing and supporting the idea that we have more boats, more traffic on the lake, and maybe at the yacht club, it's a better place than the spot. But what part of this is preserving the environment and the aesthetics. And like I said several times, we've reached our limit, and that's what the people have told me. That nobody that I've spoken to, and I grew up here, and there's a lot of people that have my ear, and they don't like it.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the denial? That's 4 in favor. All opposed? Councillor Patton? Don't think he hears us. So 2 opposed, 4 in favor. The motion carries. Item 9.2, development variance permit for 9900 Gilman Road, and Ms. Tooney.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, I will be presenting a development variance permit for the property at 9900 Gilman Road. And this is to request to allow 2 farm home plates on 1 agricultural property. As you can see here, the property is zoned A1 small agricultural and is situated in a high agricultural productive area. This property is also surrounded by agricultural land reserve parcels, which is high in the area. So this application is to consider the variance to our bylaw to facilitate the construction of a new principal home on an agricultural lot outside of the existing farm home plate. As you can see here, this is the site plan proposed. The proposed location is quite a far distance from the existing farm home plate and residence on the property, which is located on the upslope hill area on the north quarter of the property, as you can see. This proposal seeks to not exceed the maximum farm home plate size of 905 square metres, but rather to split that up into two proposed farm home plates. One for the existing residents on the uphill of 540 square metres, and the new second proposed closer to Gilman Road, totaling 365, thus splitting up the allowance. The proposed dwelling would be the principal new dwelling with a floor area of 113 square metres, while the existing residents would meet the district's carriage house regulations and being under 90 square metres. The applicant indicated that the second dwelling would possibly be for their family in the future. They have a plan to move onto the property along with their children, who they hope will aid them in the workings of the farm themselves. To go over the site information, as you can see here, it's quite a large parcel, 3.5 acres, and BC Assessment have this at just over 11.5 acres that is arable. The existing dwelling is constructed into the bedrock of the hillside, which is in the north property, as we just said. And the existing farm home plate of the 540, and proposing to split the smaller remainder of the farm home plate next to Gilman Road. There's currently one access to the property, basically pretty bang centre of the property on Gilman Road. The applicant is proposing a second access if the second farm home plate is approved. This photograph shows a more realistic distance between the existing and the second farm home plate. As you can see, the existing one up on the north parcel and the new proposed site down off of Gilman. This photograph is from the actual corner of the property, east of the access point. This is right on the corner. You have the neighbouring property driveway, as you can see here. And the proposed second home plate and modular home would be sited where you see the line of trees here, which at this point have been taken out as they are old growth and they're being replaced. This photograph here is from our GIS utility mapping system. And this shows where the existing water connections are. Staff took this into consideration after comments from our Agricultural Advisory Committee. Thought that the map showing where the utilities are and where the new houses were proposed would be beneficial for council. So to our zoning regulations, the local government retains authority to restrict or prohibit residential uses on ALR properties through our zoning regulations. The A1 zone allows for a carriage house as an accessory use, subject to the regulations under our section 7 on carriage houses. Carriage houses must be sited, though, within the existing farm home plate and is subject to our regulations under section 4 of our farm home plate. The zoning bylaw only permits one farm home plate with a maximum site of 905 square metres, as previously mentioned. So this, as always, our files are circulated to our internal and external departments. Internal referral comments was from our Works and Utilities, recommending that the applicant perhaps apply for a pit meter if this application is approved. And from our external governing bodies, the ALC noted to cite the modular home here, the ground actually slopes away quite significantly. And so if an extended amount of fill is required, they would have to get a soil permit from the ALC and then again from us. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food actually submitted a letter, and you can see in your package on attachment number 7. And they actually are recommending the council deny this application. And you will be able to see in that the application, they're noted that it's taking away from arable land and should be housed next to the existing house. Fortis Gas didn't have too much to say. There's no gas in that area. In accordance with our local government bylaws, owners and tenants over 60 metres surrounding were notified of this variance. At the time of the agenda being publicised, we had 3 letters of correspondence, 1 expression of objection and 2 expressions of support. This has increased up till now as well, as you can see any additions from the corporate officer. This application was taken to our Agricultural Advisory Committee on the 18th of April last week. And you can see here some of the comments from them. They understood that citing a second dwelling near the existing principal could be problematic through conversation with the applicant at the meeting. They wanted to know who could possibly live there. And again, they asked about where the services were coming in, that's why I put the map there. But in the end, the committee actually were in support of the variance, and the resolution was carried as supplied. Excuse me. The 2 photos in front of you here are of the existing home and farm home plate. As you can see, the house is built into the hill face, and through visiting the original building permit of this home, it was established that the construction of the home required extensive excavation as well as blasting into the bedrock. So through discussion, staff noted there are other areas closer to the main access that could be used and would not require a new driveway of the same frontage as proposed. To allow our second farm home plate to be added to the property would require loss of productive arable land, which goes against the policies of our OCP. Staff note that it would be difficult to site a carriage house on the farm anywhere without having to require a variance and without disruption of any of the fruit trees or farming. The distance from the existing farm home plate is substantial, as you've seen from our photographs, and goes against the intent of our farm home plate by limiting the impact of residential use. However, staff do note that the second farm home plate is small and the allowance is being split between the 2 locations, and the applicant is not asking for 2 separate 905 square metre locations. It is close to Gilman and significantly closer to the utility hookups than the existing. So staff are recommending, despite this, is given the limited size of the farm home plate and its close location to Gilman Road and services, staff are in favour of the proposed variance, but are aware more suitable locations could be available. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through our Director of Development Services. I thought there was like two options. Either you build on a home plate or you come for a variance, but that must be accompanied with an agrologist report. And in this package, I don't see any letter from a registered agrologist.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Alphen, we do have that allowance for certain uses to be located outside the farm home plate. Agritourism accommodation is one, as well. The farm worker housing, which is not what this is being applied for temporary farm worker housing, is also another one that specifically states it can be sited outside the farm home plate as long as it's not on arable land, followed with an agrologist report. In this case, it's pretty clear from the applicant and from where it's being cited that it is arable land. So from staff's perspective, there's no real value in asking for an agrologist report to tell you that's arable land when it's being actively farmed, with orchard trees on it right now. So it's really a decision of council as to whether it's a suitable location to have an additional farm home plate on the property.
Councillor Bark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a flat area on the top northeast corner of the property that isn't farmed. I understand that pickers camp there and stuff in the summer, but they can also find somewhere else. Why isn't that a suitable place to, or else at least even better yet because it used to have apple trees and such when Charlie Liner ran the orchard. We know it's going to have a lot more than 10 centimeters of topsoil. Charlie had apple trees up there, big ones. So a drain field could go there and the house could go on the hillside or something. The road's already there, so you're not taking away any productive land. That seems like a better plan. I mean, maybe it's not the cheapest plan, but our policy is to preserve agricultural land, not provide the cheapest housing locations. Has that been addressed?
To Councillor Barkwell through the mayor. Okay, so I brought up the site plan so we can talk about the area that you discussed. So if you look at the top right-hand area, it looks like a nice green pasture that's not been farmed. The applicant does use that for pickers to camp there during the season. And also it has a lot of their materials up there. That small grey garage that you see houses a lot of the equipment. On the top section where the house is, you see the driveway goes up. To the left of that, yes, you're right, it is flat. Staff did note this to the applicant that that would be a more favourable location for staff, and it was one of the first areas that I did speak to the applicant about. They have since came forward with a wastewater practitioner report who did some test holes up there, and they have indicated that they wouldn't be able to put a new septic system in that area. Would not. Yeah, and that's in our report.
But that's not the area I'm talking about. I'm talking about that part that juts out on the northeast corner where the campers are. Like that could be a septic field, and you could have the house anywhere above that, and running a gravity feed to a septic field is the cheapest way you can go. So I think that's a bit of a red herring to say, well, of course that rocky area up there on the left is not suitable for a septic field. You don't need to be an expert to know that. We don't know, I don't suppose any test pits were done on that bare spot on the right, were they?
To Councillor Barkwell. several different locations were remarked to the applicant when they came in at first with their idea. There was several rationales as to why the areas that I indicated wouldn't work for themselves and their family. And thus they brought forward this location. Yeah.
Mr. Dalvin, yes on that?
Yeah, if council wishes, they may choose to hear from the applicant on this question as well. We've brought forward their request to council, but they're in the room if they want to explain their position as to why they're seeking this specific location.
Councilor Parkmore, you want to ask the applicant? Yeah, anybody opposed? No? Would the applicant like to come up? Thanks. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Yeah, I don't know where to start necessarily, other than, yeah, we looked at that top corner that was unsuitable. So we had kind of gone through the whole process of like, where can we fit this place properly? With our first intent was, you know, we've got 4 children, 3 of them are in their early 20s. We'd love them to stay in the area. So our goal is affordable housing. So we looked at that top, you know, piece at first, became unaffordable very quickly with the amount of blasting that would need to happen, and then confirmation that was not suitable for a septic field. We did look at that proposed site that you're mentioning as well. The challenges we have with that particular site is we do use it for our pickers, and our equipment is all there. So if there was a residence right there, I spray early in the mornings, 5 a.m. With the residence right there, not great. Also, the house that is situated on the property it sits right above it. So if there's another residence, it's right below, like overlooking. So privacy for that residence would be very little, looking down into their yard, into their house. The noise travels when we're working down in the orchard, and if you're up at the main house that's there now, the noise travels up to that house, and you can hear very clearly conversations that are going on, even in a normal conversation. So if somebody is living in that location, they will not have any privacy. So we did look at then putting it down by the end of the driveway, closer to our driveway. And I consulted with BC Tree Fruits, who I'm a member of, just regarding their food safe protocols. And that area is quite flat, and they were concerned that if that septic field ever overflowed, or if there was an issue or even a spill, that those fruit trees would be contaminated. And so they wanted quite a large setback that we felt was just a bit unreasonable and would take up a large portion of the land that we could no longer plant in. So we proposed to them, what do you think of this site? That corner slopes off away from the orchard. And they said, well, if we put the mobile home between the, if we put the septic field in between the mobile home and the orchard with that land sloping away, they were quite supportive of that. So we felt, of all things considered, those were our best locations.
Well, first of all, I mean, you've got your reasons and trying to justify it to the council. I grew up in an orchard surrounded on all 4 sides. Noise is not an issue. And on top of that, so I'm not going to hear that particular issue. And also the house down at the bottom would be as much in the orchard as any house up at the top. Are you saying, I'm not clear about the septic field, this little corner on the top northeast corner, that the BC fruit packers said, well, that's not a good place for a septic field as far as they're concerned, because if it failed, it might leach over to the west into the trees?
Sorry, which location?
No, I'm asking about the northeast corner. Yeah. No, okay, so what was wrong with the septic field up there in the northeast corner?
When we dug the test holes up there,
Where I'm talking the flat part where Charlie had an apple tree.
Okay, we never tested that
Yeah,
area.
yeah, okay, let's get the clear about that. That's not the part we're talking about when you
No, I
said
was
that.
talking about Councillor Brockville, that's not what he said.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
so that remains a possibility as a good place to put a house and a septic field.
as far as farmable land goes, I would say they're very similar. It's not that you're saving farmland by putting it over there,
Mhm.
other than it would cost me more money to move things over there. I did have one of my neighbors express concerns about that area, that they didn't desire it to be put in that area because they felt it infringed on their house more so than even where we are proposing it.
Yeah, okay, so the neighbor doesn't want you having a place that might look down on her?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but at the Agriculture Advisory Committee meeting, the neighbor wasn't really happy about the location of the trailer right by their driveway either.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
like,
Any other questions for the applicant? I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't. So you didn't put it next to the driveway, the existing driveway, because of the risk of a septic failure. It would go into the orchard. But where would it go? If there was a septic failure where you have it now, where is it gonna go? It slopes away from the orchard, so it would slope towards the road there. Yeah. So it'd be somebody else's problem. Hopefully, yeah, those are things, right? So I think with the setbacks that they wanted, it was like 100 feet. So we had to look for another option. Okay, Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
For the applicant.
And thank you for coming forward today. I can understand why you're trying to provide accommodation options for your family members to grow on the farm. And so it is a challenge for us and at the Agricultural Advisory Committee members to try and find the right way to encourage more housing on these ALR properties. So just to know that you're not the only one, and we are always just trying to find that balance of encouraging where can the secondary home be without taking too much farmland. So that's always the question there. Yeah, my questions were definitely more about, can we try and get it closer to the existing driveway so that we just don't have to do a second driveway access? Again, just taking away more of that farmland, that upper right area, the northeast area. I can understand why the neighbor would be worried about septic failure, but at the same time, we have these fields all over the place. Like Deer Ridge is, I mean, we're about to put sewer up there, but it's a whole area built with homes in kind of stacked towards each other. So just to ask that it was the area to the left of your main driveway, north of where you've got all of the apple orchards. Is that area, the top left there, was all too steep and just too much rock to allow a home to go there? Yeah. It's challenging. That's really challenging. I think I can see like the rationale for where you're saying your equipment is stored and where your pickers camp as perhaps like this different opportunity, but ultimately things also have to work for families trying to move forward. Is there any chance that you could put in a few more rows of apples up into that right-hand corner?
Yeah, when we first, below like where the pickers are, is that what you're meaning? Yeah, when we first bought the property, there was some apple trees in there. Again, we call it the Garden of Eden because it was just a plethora of fruits of all kinds, which we found hard to manage. We did pull them out, but there is room to plant in there. Yep.
I just think that might be an opportunity to find a compromise, right? Is to say, well, this makes the most sense for the utilities to bring in a mobile home on the flattest spot, but to say that it would be incumbent and it would be good to plant more trees up top to just show your demonstration in the ALR as just the commitment to farming. So that's all I can add.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I don't see any further questions. Councillor Betts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to bring forward the staff recommendation to approve the issuance of the development variance permit DVP 24-008.
Okay, do I have a motion, a seconder for that? Councillor Trainer? Okay, discussion. Councillor Betts, did you want to start it off? She brought the motion forward.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I kind of got at the heart of it with my last points, really about the ALC and the ALR regulations came forward allowing the building of a secondary dwelling. So ultimately, that means at times we're going to lose small amounts of this land to allow multi-generational living on farmland. So trying to take that spirit of that legislation and that's why I brought it forward as is.
Councillor Sparkle?
Ultimately, if we're trying to preserve farmland, where I suggest in the top northeast corner doesn't really help preserve farmland because it's just as good as down below. So I would like to see something, as Councillor Betts suggested, if they do put a farmhouse down here and next to the road, which has certainly its advantages, that they mitigate that a little bit by planting up in the top of that area that used to have trees, but we can't force them to. But as Councillor Betts said, let's encourage them. And so ultimately, and I can understand that the rest of the property, it would be very difficult to build in, and they probably would like to if they could, because it would have a fabulous view. But so I actually, despite my pointed questions, I think I can support this because it's not going to make any difference anyway. We're going to lose some agricultural land if you want to build a house there.
Councillor Nelson?
I totally agree with Councillor Betts. To the point is that is arable land. If you want to put the trailer down on arable land, it would be nice to see that other arable land utilized. I mean, I'm sure the campers can camp somewhere else. It'd be more advantageous to have it with fruit trees. And then I would be in support of this. My only other concern, and I just wanted to know if it's something the applicants would consider, as we heard at the Agriculture Advisory Committee from the neighbor, is there some way to buffer that? You know, like some type of vegetation that would at least help the neighbor, you know, with some of her stresses about the driveway. You know, that would be, you know, a neighborly thing to do, but it's not what's in front of us here today, but I could support the motion.
Good. Anyone else? Councillor Peak?
I really appreciate the discussion, and I would encourage the applicant as well to see if there's an opportunity to expand the plantings. But with the servicing being down at the road, I see that a split home plate would work in this property. And I do like the opportunity that there is housing for family members to allow them to either help with it or to maybe take it over one day. And even if it is a split property, that the use of both these dwellings could be used in the future, whether it stays in the family or not. So I see the advantage to this, and I will vote in favor.
I guess the thing I struggle with here is, you know, the idea of building outside the home plate is you can recognize that not all farms, a lot of farmland that has land that's not arable. So you might as well do something with that, and you might as well build on it, even if it's not in the home plate. But that doesn't apply in this case. We're losing arable farmland by allowing it. And you know, it's what makes it difficult is because we have this housing crisis. But you know, hopefully the housing crisis won't always be with us, but we'll always need arable farmland. You know, this is the dilemma I think we're faced with. I think if there wasn't a housing crisis, this would be, forget it. There's no way we would do this.
Such.
You know, so that's,
Yeah.
that's the realities that we have today you know, so some, you know, 20 years from now, people will look at this, why did they allow that? You know, we need farmland, you know, so Counselor Tran.
Can staff just confirm, it's a mobile home? Is that right?
The deputy mayor, it's a prefab modular home, not a mobile.
So that means it would have a foundation?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay, no further comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. Carries. Business arising, corporate officer.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. Committee of the whole meetings occur when council in its entirety sit as a committee to consider items in more detail and report its findings and recommendations to the governing body. These findings and recommendations are referred to council for their approval. So at its April 9th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting, council in committee recommended to council to consider the following resolution. That staff be directed to proceed with implementing detailed design work with the target to begin reconstruction of the Wharton Street revitalization project in 2025. And further, that funding option 3, as noted in the report, be confirmed as the preferred funding option for the inclusion in the 2025 budget process. This resolution is now before council for consideration. Materials that council used to recommend the motion to council are included in the request for decision to provide context to the public on how council came to this decision. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. And so we approved this in committee of the whole, so we just now have to approve it in council. Councilor Peak.
I will bring the resolution forward.
Would it be possible to get it on the screen, just so people watching at home can see what we're voting on? Do we have a seconder for that? Councilor Van Elfen? Nope. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. And next item, 11.2, corporate officer.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. I won't repeat everything I did before, but this resolution came from the April 16th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting. As council and committee recommended to council that staff be directed to proceed with option 2 as outlined in the presentation Deer Ridge Sewer dated April 16th, 2024 from the Director of Utilities should the local sanitary sewer service for the Deer Ridge Sewer bylaw number 2024-024 not receive a sufficient petition against. And again, these materials are included in the agenda for public to see how council came to this decision. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Council? Councilor Van Elfen?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Betts, any discussion? Again, same thing. Call the question, all in favor? And that carries. Notice of motion. Does anybody have a notice of motion? Okay, I have one. I'd like to give notice of motion to we direct staff to explore alternative potential locations for a temporary pop-up dog fence, dog park, including unused farmland within the ALR, and to apply to the ALC for the temporary non-farm use of such land if required, and that a request for expressions of interest be issued to determine interest from landowners in leasing private land to the district for the purpose of establishing a temporary pop-up fence dog park. If council wants, we can discuss this tonight. Otherwise, we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Next meeting? Next meeting it is then. Okay. Any other notices motion? No? Councilor reports. Oh, no, sorry, we have a item removed from the consent agenda, the development report. Councilor Betts wanted to pull that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question would be for our Director of Development Services. Thank you. What I was kind of digging into in the information was our short-term rental numbers and statistics. Now, I do note that we have a July to kind of February, March numbers comparison, and where we went from, I believe it was 128 listings, active listings, to 81 active listings. So there is a bit of a time of year difference, but overall it appears that we're having fewer short-term rental and hopefully more long-term rental opportunities for people who want to come and live in Summerland and work and pay their taxes here. But my question actually is that do you anticipate kind of a reduced workload in this regard for our bylaw staff because of the changes in the provincial regulations and how they're kind of taking over the authority with short-term rental?
Through your worship to Councillor Betts, thank you for the question and thanks for pulling out my report. I think this is a good topic of discussion given that Bill 35 comes into force on May 1st, so this week. And so most short-term rental operators will have to be in compliance as of May 1st with the provincial regulations. And so to answer your question, yes, I think this will be supporting our bylaw enforcement efforts, and with the province's new tools that they have at their disposal, and they seem willing to move forward with implementation of those tools, such as hiring their own enforcement staff, as well as holding the listing agencies to account with substantial fines if they break the rules of not having, for example, their license posted on a listing for an operator. And that's really the big help from us at the local government level is the requirement from the province to have that license number on the listing that is encouraging everyone to come in and through basically a stick to our office and say that I need to get a District of Summerland business license because the province is telling me I have to have it in place. So yes, it's definitely supporting our enforcement efforts and ensuring that compliance will eventually be achieved by all short-term rental operators in the future, except for probably a few outliers out there we still have to chase.
Thanks so much for that.
So if they don't have that provincial number, they can't be listed on the platform?
Yeah, to answer the question, the act states that you need to have a local government license number. So our business license number, listed on the listing. And so there is a new platform, an online platform registry that operators can upload their number to the provincial registry. And then as well, we would send a list periodically to the province to ensure that those numbers are matching with our records. They've kind of provide us a log on, and I've already implemented a software program for us to upload our data into this provincial registry. And ideally we get in consistency with what's being provided to the province.
And is it user friendly?
I haven't used it myself yet today. I don't know.
Councillor Trainer.
Is there a place where people can report Airbnbs that are not in compliance with the province? Like, do those complaints have to come to the district, or can they go to the province now that they've also brought in these rules?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Trainer, I think the province has been very clear that the Bill 35, the Short-Term Rental Accommodations Act, is their regulations. It's not regulations that they're requiring local governments to enforce on their behalf. So they are setting up this compliance and enforcement branch I would expect that they would have an ability to receive complaints or calls direct from the public or from operators or people visiting an Airbnb as a tourist to contact the province directly. I think most people will still come to us though, just because we're the local government authority and they might not be aware of that province is having their own enforcement staff.
The reason I ask is that I had somebody tell me about a situation, but they didn't want to report it to the district because they're neighbors and they didn't. So, and this person had asked if there was a way that if they could report it to the province now that it is the province's legislation. So that is an option, is what you said. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to receive the report. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Betts, all in favor? That carries. And councillor reports. Anybody have anything to report? Councillor Peak?
Yes, I attended some of the Earth Day activities, and I want to commend both the museum and the Art Council for the work they did and having presentations available. And we also had one of our own, and it was nice for the kids to be out there, and it was a beautiful day.
Thank you. Councillor Shane.
Last Sunday, a bunch of neighbors in Trout Creek got together and we did another community cleanup. It was our 19th. And this time, myself and another friend, we went into Trout Creek and pulled out 2 old picnic tables that had been there for years and years, and they were very dangerous. They had nails. And so we pulled them out. And I wanted to thank district staff for taking them away for us. We ended up getting about 30 bags of garbage. So it was a huge cleanup. And yeah, I just want to thank all the neighbors and the people who helped out. And again, district staff for taking away all the garbage.
You pulled out the picnic tables from where?
They were in the creek.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, they were in Trout Creek, in the actual creek. They were in Trout Creek,
Sure it wasn't, no, there was no salmon spawning in there, were there?
No, well, they were kind of on the edge. Yeah, they were dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor Trainer, and just all the work that you do in Trout Creek at this time of year. I just wanted to bring up, I had a meeting with the Rotary-led group for the improvement of the Pier Committee, the SPEC, and Summerland Pier Enhancement Committee of a few different members of our community. And just to remind our different citizens in town that there are still fundraising opportunities available if you would like to have your chance to have a plaque on the pier once it's built with your family name on it. Those opportunities still remain. And you can look on the Rotary website here in Summerland to get more information, and it is tax deductible donations. So that's really, really important because it's a charitable donation. And I just wanted to encourage people, this is your chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barkle.
Thank you. I'd like to report that, all of the decisions of council are concerning the future of Summerland and how it looks. I believe that the decision on the pier in Trout Creek was a particularly important decision. I feel quite good about that. It is going to help set the atmosphere of Summerland, the character of Summerland, what Summerland's about for the people that continue to come here. It preserves what we are and the reason that people will want to relocate to Summerland without ruining it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen, nothing? Okay. Public comment period. Any members of just come up to the podium, state your name and civic address, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Byron Dolan, 10915 Ward Street. I'm just here to talk to you again about safe routes to school. In the last meeting I was here because they had pulled the bike infrastructure out of the Memorial Park. This month I'm here because they pulled that Wharton Street removal. They've also pulled out the Victoria Road bike infrastructure. So now the only way to bike downtown from like the Sinclair Plateau is either, when I was a kid, we called it Suicide Hill, or you have kids biking through roundabouts, which is possibly the most dangerous place for kids to be cycling. So I would strongly ask again that through the detailed engineering, you really relook at the importance of that Victoria Road and the Wharton bike routes. Once we do this change, it's not going to change for a generation. Like Wharton's going to be the way it will be after this for a long time. And I'm really disappointed that we're prioritizing angle parking over bike roads. I only have a minute left, but I'm going to quote a couple of sections. So 2008 Transportation Master Plan, in order to promote bicycle use, it's necessary to ensure appropriate infrastructure is provided. 2015 OCP, ensure planning and design of Summerland's transportation network considers walking, transit, car share, electric bikes, and bicycles. 2018 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, improve pedestrians and cycling infrastructure. 2019 Cycling Master Plan Vision Statement. Summerland's a healthy living, community where healthy living is encouraged and walking, cycling, and other forms of transportation are safe and comfortable. 2020 Age-Friendly Community Report, all ages would benefit from a complete street approach. 2022 Down Neighborhood Action Plan, create streets for all modes of travel, prioritizing pedestrians and cyclists. So again, I would ask, please consider during the detailed design to put proper bike infrastructure in, especially because Sinclair Plateau is where RU1 is going to be. So that's going to be a lot higher density with more families that are biking through the downtown core to get to what will be possibly the biggest elementary school in School District 67. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mary Ann McDonald, 6505 McDonald Place. I don't know whether staff foresaw the problem with the garbage schedule, the new garbage schedule, and needing a second truck on the blue garbage days. I was assured at the open house when I was talking to staff that the waste disposal contractors had worked together on this project. So I don't know whether you had a practice rollout day to see if things would roll smoothly or not. And I was wondering, I know that the new waste facility was supposed to be rolled out last fall and there were glitches, and it appears that there still are. And I don't know whether it was a timeline because of grant money or council initiative, but I think the rollout date was rushed. And once again, the cart is before the horse. One of the truck drivers said that it would be sometime next year before they can get a truck to handle both the blue and green waste bins. So an extra truck and driver. And I was wondering if that was an oversight and also who's absorbing the cost of it, but I'm pretty sure it's the taxpayers. Thank
you. Hi, Council. Thank you for denying the proposed lake house dock tonight. That was the right decision. And Councillor Barkwell, you made some really good common sense points, so thank you for that. Thank you. I don't see anyone else. I'll ask for adjournment, please. Councillor Trainer, Councillor Peak, all in favor?